Good evening, everyone. Yeah, big thank you again for making your way over. I know on a lovely evening like this, you probably want to be out in the sunshine as quickly as possible, but that free drink and canapé hopefully will tempt you to stay the whole evening. I'm going to be fairly short and sweet. I think I'm here to provide really a bit of the context and I think what I call kind of the philosophy behind what Digitalme is trying to achieve. Digital credential, digital badging, whatever you've heard of it before, we think that it is going to transform a lot of the ways people work, the way they develop skills, and the way we can connect those two things together. And we're excited about that, and we want to share that. And a lot of what we do is really to make it easy for people to transition in, and we'll explain a little bit what that means. So Digitalme is part of the City and Guilds Group, obviously has much wider portfolio of products and services from the big brands of ILM and City and Guilds as kind of the kind of core awarding bodies you're all probably aware of. Kineo, who obviously supply great corporate learning solutions, e-learning platform. Oxford Group, who kind of really focus on kind of leadership management coaching. And E3, and not on here yet, Gen2, who are a recent acquisition we've made in the nuclear industry and kind of real technical training. So you can see there a real diverse set of businesses who all have the core purpose of, developing skills and helping economies to grow. And what I think Digitalme does is really complement what they do. And we said kind of in the invitation it was a call to adventure. And what I mean by that is we're really inviting you in now to help work through how we think we can help you not only develop the careers of the people you support, whether they're students, members, your employees, but also how that can drive business growth. And actually, by doing one thing, you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. And what sits at the heart of our mission, and what we think, we're kind of inviting you on that cause to say, how can we all work together to make the invisible visible? I've been in the City and Guilds Group 12 years. It's something that, as I worked on various different products and services, felt that too many things that employers wanted to see, they weren't. And too many things that young people had that they wanted to show weren't seen. And we had this big disconnect between the two. And our kind of mission of saying we want to make the invisible visible, we want to help make the people we work with make that a reality too. Because we believe that when kind of people or organisations can see more skills, they can connect better to opportunities. There are, I think, too many people sat out of work. There are too many people in jobs that aren't progressing in their careers they want to, and that's just leading to a huge lack of productivity for business. And there are just too many needs placed in terms of the skills that are required that aren't being met. And I think digital credentials, and I think what you'll see for some really great case studies, goes a long way in closing that gap. And by closing that gap, we can make better, more informed decisions. We can ensure that people maximise the opportunities that are available. And we are really about bringing those two things together. And at Digitalme, we kind of try and encapsulate that in 3 simple words, but I'm going to probably spend about 5 minutes trying to explain each of those words and what they mean, because I think when you understand that, I think it starts to bring the benefits and the reality of what digital credentials do into the forefront. And our strapline is this: it's to see every skill. It drives the purpose not only from how we might engage young people trying to enter the workforce, but actually how we transition people who are not only on the job, but onto the next job. When we talk about C, we really talk about the fact that in the modern world we live in, how people share those skills is a key part of that. How people are discovered, how we can drive better recognition, how we can drive celebration, visibility. I think a key part in terms of transparency. In the world of kind of post-truth, in the world of fake news, our trust in things digital actually is decreasing rather than increasing. And our ability through that transparency to make a more valid judgment is kind of critical. We want to drive better understanding. We're hit with constant deluge of data points, emails, Twitter, Facebook. How do you kind of find your way through all that data and drive actual understanding from that? We see C as a word about examination. Like we said, that ability to delve deep, to really test something hard, and the ability then to validate that. So that's kind of where the kind of word C comes from. And that's really set in the context of the digital world we all live in. Whether we love it or hate it, it's only going to advance at an ever faster rate. And now when we talk about sharing, we talk about your ability to share across this huge range of various different digital platforms. When you talk about your professional persona, the fact that someone can put your name into Google before you've even stepped into a job interview and made a judgment about you based on how your Facebook profile works. You'll have seen in the news even last week, Harvard, who rejected a whole swathe of candidates based on a number of comments they made and rejected them saying they are not the type of people we want at Harvard. How you represent yourself online is so critical now. And how do you ensure that your presence online is something that's going to put you best foot forward? And that could be websites, on blogs, within talent management systems, within your learning management systems. Just think of all the places we have a profile of some sort. And how are we going to ensure that your skills can be seen in those places? Secondly, that word kind of every, and I think it's certainly the bit that kind of drives what I'm passionate about, is it isn't just what qualifications we achieve at 18, at 21. They're hugely important, and we shouldn't lose those. But actually, it's about providing more differentiation of young people. It's about proving that uniqueness. Only when we actually can see uniqueness will we ever drive the equality, diversity agenda, which is probably core to a lot of the learning and development strategies set in business. When we talk about every, we talk about wholeness, the rounder person, you know, the personal and the professional. How many of us sometimes hide behind that professional mask when actually it's letting our personal side forward is what's going to drive the most engagement with your colleagues and the most productivity on the job. It's about bringing together the formal and the informal. I mean, we probably all sat here with a huge amount of development. How much of that was actually done in a formal learning setting? How much of that was done on the job? And how much of that has probably gone unrecognised on your CV, on your LinkedIn profile, that when you do get to that critical job interview process, or even there might not be an interview, someone's just gone out and made a judgment about you. How can you actually change those sorts of perceptions? It's about bringing the old and new world together and ensuring we don't lose what happened in the past and focus too much on what's happening now and vice versa. It's about the ability to show progression. We don't often make huge leaps in one go, and I think we've got a really good case study from ILM that highlights that. We make a lot of our development in incremental steps, and those stepping stones all add together into bigger milestones, but our ability to give visibility to that is really essential. And it's about thinking about kind of, like I said, those milestones and just general achievements, and think of it in the total kind of widest possible context. And here are just some examples of digital credentials that kind of show you some of that breadth. So you have a traditional qualification on the left-hand side. You know, a lot of people, when perhaps they have maybe heard about open badges or credentials for this time, felt it was in competition with qualifications in some way, it was a different thing. Absolutely not. It's just a really great way to share and give visibility to a great achievement you've done. You're going to hear about a case study of how a huge professional association working at a global level is thinking differently about how it recognises the highest possible level of MasterChef, and Dora from Sitting Gill is going to come and talk on World Chef's behalf around how they've used digital credentials. And we've got a whole range of different things in there. It really is about trying to say that you are no longer one thing, you are a collection of lots of things, and it's only by seeing all of those things together and seeing that wholeness that you actually see uniqueness. It's kind of one of those two things. And then the word skill, you know, in terms of that every piece, is to say we need to provide recognition of everything you can do. You know, there's probably been far too much a focus for the last 150 years in most Western societies of academic skills, the need for a university degree. Yet actually, how much of those skills do you learn that actually do you play back into the workplace later on, to the detriment often, certainly in the public funding sense, of technical education, technical and professional education. Yet actually what do we need as an economy is those kind of level 4, level 5 technical skills that go through. One thing we've started to try and shift the terminology in is employability skills. You know, actually we call these the human skills, the stuff that in the world of AI and automation and digitization are actually the stuff that's really, really critical for what we need in the workplace. It's about the traditional forms of competence and behaviour and not viewing those as a moment in time. I made a judgment 5 years ago that you were competent, but actually we can do that on an ongoing, consistent basis, year after year, to prove someone is still competent. It's about saying we should value behaviours, habits, Motivations, a lot of the early engagement, some of the best case studies in digital credentials is actually when we show passions. And actually when you're interviewing someone, isn't that something you want to see when someone walks through the door? That someone cares about the industry they're working in, or cares about where they're going to volunteer, or whatever that may be. So for us, that kind of 3 words, that ability to just have complete visibility, trust, transparency in a modern digital world, how we show absolute kind of wholeness, but uniqueness at the same time, and across a whole range of skills. And we really believe when you bring those things together, that's when we can, like we said, start to plug that gap in between the two. And when we look at the skills, certainly on this side here, in 2015, how many of our current training and development initiatives are actually delivering against the skills that we need? How many of our degree programs and academic programs are putting people out into the workplace where you have clear visibility about an understanding of those skills? Probably not many. And we've got this big change in, how that's going to ever change, even by 2020 and 2025. The shift of skills higher up the kind of value chain, much more into the stuff, how we make better decisions, how we better communicate as people. Where are we seeing that on a CV? Everyone can put, I am good at communication, I'm committed, I'm passionate. How the hell do you make a judgment between the thousands of ones you see? How can people tell that better, kind of richer picture? So coming that together, kind of why do I think digital credentials can help so many people? Well, I think it helps those people developing skills, which is probably a lot of what you do in the room, whether you're a college, whether you're a training provider, whether you're an employer in an L&D team, or whether you sit in a kind of a third sector organisation trying to massively help the tenants who are coming into the workforce. The ability to better engage and motivate people through giving a clearer outcome and a clearer pathway through that outcome. The ability to track and demonstrate progress. As we say, it's not about the big achievement in 2 years, it's about building confidence through the small steps you make. It's about then, once you have results, letting more people see those results. It's not about a certificate in the drawer. It's about your brand being visible, that you've helped someone. It's about that person being visible because they've got the right outcome. It's about seeing greater trust in what we've done. There's a lot of great learning and development that goes on that people are almost, well, I can't put that on the CV because it doesn't have a well-established name or it wasn't a big university. How can we just give more trust to the great stuff that happens by driving greater understanding? And then when you do all those things, and I think ILM have got how that can actually drive growth for the people developing those skills. Because the more people who see that you've helped someone, the more people you're going to be able to convince that you should work with, whether that's attracting more employers or whether that's attracting more people to actually commit to a program itself. In terms of those helping to see every skill, and I can just say that's employers, but actually it could be people recruiting for university, or it could be people putting a committee together for a program. There are times where people need to make a judgment about you, and they need to see the skills you have. And what digital credentials can do is give you a much longer term view of that. You can see future talent, just not near-side talent. Your ability to, like I said, see that uniqueness and that diversity, which is so essential. The fact that you'll be actually able to see not just competence, but probably performance on the job, and how important that will be when you're putting teams together or making a judgment of recruiting someone, if you can actually see that level of information. We've seen, and Jonathan has some great stats when he talks, just how it can drive retention. Constantly rewarding and recognising people makes them very loyal and wants them to stay because they feel like they're getting something out of it as well. And then the final one is, for employers, it isn't just about seeing the individual, it's about seeing a complete view of their talent. It's about seeing, if you employ tens of thousands of people, do you have the right skills in the right place? Where are your gaps? Where do you actually have perhaps an oversupply? And only by putting everything and recognising everything can you provide that big data picture. And then finally, the most important part at the end of it is, that what does it mean for the me? It's about just letting people show the real me. It's about saying, I am more than a few grades on a piece of paper. I'm more than, my job title or a big brand I worked for. I'm actually a whole load of things, and actually make a judgment with me on that rounder picture. Because then they'll be able to see more opportunities. I think we'll get more people into employment. We'll be able to drive up productivity within business. They'll be able to press through progression. And I think what we've certainly seen in the early adoption of digital credentials, they're fantastic to drive self-development. They are clear milestones people can plot their own pathways through. And that just helps with it. It's probably high on all our agendas. It's not top-down learning. It's the ability to let people take more kind of autonomy over their own development. And Digitalme really is about helping these kind of 4 key groups say you can make the invisible visible. It's not just an awarding body. It's not just a university. Everyone can play a role in someone's career development, whether you're a line manager, whether you're running a volunteering program. They're all opportunities to develop skills, which means there's an opportunity to recognise that progression. And that's what digital credentials are about. They're about saying we can ensure we can give complete visibility to everything that's achieved, and we can make sure that that's then understood and it's trusted when that's done. And hopefully the case studies you'll see is actually exactly how that will happen. And there's just one example I wanted to finish on, which is a really small example. I think sometimes when you talk about the potential of digital credentials, everyone's head kind of spins and they go, oh my God, where do we start? Well, the City and Guilds group, in terms of its people, started on just a really small scheme. We have 3 core values to everything we do, which is integrity, leadership, and imagination. And we have, great purpose in terms of what we are there to do is be pioneers in skills development. And those values are important, but people who live those values weren't getting the recognition they deserved. And through a judgment process, nominations, people going through, we were ability to shortlist, and they'll all go through to being a winner. When that program first started, there were going to be 4 winners. Only 4 people would have got some sort of recognition. A couple of days' work, we were able to develop something which could be awarded to someone that would make them feel great. But actually what they then did was share that online. And suddenly City and Guilds Group's employer value proposition suddenly went up. Because all they saw, 21 likes, 7 comments within 5 hours of posting, that's far more than any technical post I've ever put up on LinkedIn. It's just, what did it mean to, I'm absolutely thrilled, that I've been nominated by college. She didn't care if she'd won or not. The fact that someone had gone out of their way to recognise her for showing integrity in the workplace. Now, as an employer, that appearing on a CV in a trusted way would make them stand out than just me putting, perhaps I'm a hard worker, or I'm a good communicator, or I'm good at teamwork. And that's, to me, a kind of just a very simple articulation of very little effort, very little technology, yet we can change the way that I think people feel about the employer they work for and their own self-worth.